Welcome to the Parent Tech Support Show, where I empower parents with the tech knowledge they need to know to protect their kids online. My mission is to demystify parental controls, share practical tips, share important guides, and reveal all the tricks kids know so that you can navigate the online world with confidence. I'm your host, Jack Hughes, and because I grew up in this age of digital devices, I have a lot of experience with getting around parental controls and doing stuff I wasn't allowed to. But those days are now over. Today, I use all my experience and inside information to help parents protect their kids online. In today's episode, we'll talk about the importance of regularly updating your device and apps to ensure parental controls work as expected. I'll explain how outdated software can break these controls and why constant updates are crucial for security and functionality. Number one, why do updates matter for parental controls? Why must you update your phone or your parental controls? Well, parental controls, especially built-in ones like Apple's Screen Time, rely on the latest software update to function effectively. Updates provide crucial patches to fixes and they address issues of how these controls operate, from content restrictions to app limits. iPhone's iOS version isn't current. It can cause screen time settings to malfunction or reset without notice. In fact, this was a big problem a few years ago when a lot of parents are using screen time to restrict their child's device, and the screen time would just break, and then the child would have free reign over their phone for months until the parents figured it out, because they never thought that screen time would just break like that, but it was just resetting without notice. Another example of a bug can sometimes be daily limits or downtime restrictions not activating correctly. This leaves kids with access beyond the set limits. Example of this is whenever some kids would run out of time on certain apps, they would then delete that app, and then they would just re-download the app from the App Store, and then you would have almost unlimited screen time with that app because they would just keep deleting it and re-downloading it, and then it would reset. Luckily, this has been mostly fixed, but I still sometimes hear cases of it still not working, which is why it is important to update the phone. Another issue that not updating your iOS version can cause is cross-device issues. If your child's phone and your phone aren't on the same iOS update, syncing issues can occur. Since your device is on a different update than your child's device, it may be unable to communicate with your child's device because they are on different updates. The way I like to think of this is language, right? You couldn't really communicate with someone 1,000 years ago because they spoke a different language, because you had the new language and they had the old language. Now, that's a really rough analogy, but it's similar to how the phones work. They just can't communicate, and so they can't sync up right, and your phone can't set the parental controls in your child's phone because they're using the different language. This can cause screen time limits set on your child's phone may not appear correctly on the iPad or the iPhone. This mismatch could also be confusing and may leave certain restrictions unenforced on older software versions. The older phone with the older software might not be able to communicate how much time your child spends in certain apps as well, so you don't know what they're doing on their phone anymore. Now, setting aside screen time and the built-in parental controls, it is also important to update third-party parental controls like Bark or FamilySafe. They're also very prone to bugs if they aren't regularly updated. Bark, for example, has been known to be very slow and laggy. Often all third-party parental controls can be very slow and laggy, and updates are often released specifically to resolve this issue. So staying on the current update also helps the phone run smoothly and not as buggy and glitchy. When Apple or a third-party app like FamilySafe releases an update, it often includes a list of bug fixes. For screen time, this could mean fixing a glitch where app limits didn't reset at midnight as intended. For Bark, it could address issues with social media monitoring, such as missing specific types of messages on platforms like Instagram. Also, whenever you don't update parental controls, this can allow loopholes and ways to get around the parental controls through. Kids often find many workarounds with parental controls, and they use these workarounds to get around the parental controls. For example, I used to do this all the time. I used to get unlimited messages with my friends, even though I was supposed to have a 30-minute time limit because of a workaround that I found. And the parental controls needs to be updated in order to fix this. Also, another reason why you should update the parental controls is it helps the vulnerability to cyber attacks or cyber hackers or whatnot. Unpatched and unupdated devices are more vulnerable to malware or any other cyber threats, which can compromise your child's data and security, especially when it comes to parental control services. Because they're on your child's device and because they have so much control and so much data on your child, it is very important that we keep those apps and those devices updated to the current version, because you don't want some malicious person to get a hold of all that important and sensitive data. Parental control apps often collect data on your child's activity for reporting purposes, so it is crucial to keep those apps updated. Okay, what are some tips that you can employ to keep your parental controls updated on the current version? Both iOS screen time and every third-party parental control app offers an automatic update settings. You can enable these settings on the settings app. You can set this up in the App Store for third-party apps and in the settings app for iOS devices. I would also recommend checking for updates regularly. It's a good habit to periodically check for updates manually, especially after a major iOS release, or if you notice any bugs in screen time. Sometimes the automatic updates don't work, so it is important that you regularly check that. There are some common issues that could occur after you've updated the parental controls. It's a rare bug, but sometimes screen time will completely reset after you updated your device, so you should always double check after an update to ensure that it didn't happen to you and that the settings are still in place and functioning correctly. Number 2 is a lot of the older devices, they can't be updated. So any iPhone 8 and older, and below the iPhone 8, do not support the latest iOS update, which can create inconsistencies in parental controls. If your child has an iPhone, it should be newer than the iPhone 8 so that they can be on the most up-to-date iOS. Alrighty, today we covered the importance of regular updates to ensure parental controls work as expected. We talked about the risk of outdated software, common bugs that can affect controls, and practical tips to keep your devices and apps updated. Now, as I just told you all about how important it is to update parental controls, if you want to know the basics on how to best set up parental controls and use them, then you can get my free guide on the 7 essential parental moves to protect your child's Apple device. You can get that by subscribing to my newsletter at parenttech.support. And if you found this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe. It will help other parents find this content and join us in creating a safer online world for kids. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep those devices updated and stay safe online. Thank you.